Continuing on with our video series on the DOT specimen collection process, today we're going to talk about direct observations. And that's when the donor is observed during the drug test collection process, specifically the voiding of the urine specimen. So stay tuned as we explain when and how the direct observation occurs. Okay, we're back on our video blog series about the DOT urine specimen collection process. And today we're talking about the direct observation and how that works and when and how and why we do a direct observation collection. So I have Tom, my donor, who works for Tom's Trucking, and we've started the collection process, and Tom has provided his urine specimen. And Tom, unfortunately, this specimen is out of temperature range. And so we are going to, pour off your specimen into 2 vials, and we're going to get them sealed up, and we're going to get them in the bag. But then we need to start a second collection that needs to be under direct observation. Okay. And let me explain to you what that means, because I need to get a verification that you're going to proceed with that process. So the direct observation under DOT regulations requires that I go into the restroom with you, and obviously I'm the same sex, and that's required, that it's the same gender. And once we get in the restroom, you're required to pull up your shirt above the navel, drop down your pants and underpants to mid-thigh, turn around and do a 360. The purpose of that is because as an observer, I am observing to make sure that you don't have anything strapped onto your body that is going to enable you to cheat on the drug test. And there are people that strap things onto their body to cheat on the drug test. So once we do that process, you can return your clothing to the normal position for you to urinate. And then it's my job as the observer to watch the urine go from your body into the cup. Okay? And so in this case, the temperature was out of range. When I see the urine going from your body into cup, I'm going to know that we have a temperature in range. So, are you willing to proceed with that process?
Do I have to?
Well, if you want to continue to work for Tom's Trucking, you're probably going to have to.
All right, well, I guess so then.
Okay, so again, I'm going to finish this whole process on this first specimen. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to reference the specimen ID number from the next form that I'm going to be using for the next test, which is the one that's under direct observation. So because this was out of range, I'm going to mark no, and I'm going to mark temp out of range, and I'm going to mark specimen 1 of 2, and I'm going to write the specimen ID number from my second form. So we're cross-referencing the 2 forms because we're going to be sending 2 sets of specimens to the laboratory and 2 sets of forms, okay? So once we finish that first collection, we're going to move on to the second collection. In the second collection, I'm going to fill out all the same information that I had from the first collection in step 1, what we call the administrative section of the form, and then I'm going to make sure your pockets are still empty, make sure you've washed your hands. I'm going to have you pick a collection cup. I'm going to hold on to the cup because we're going to go into the restroom and you're going to go through the process again, one more time, of raising your shirt up above the navel, dropping your pants and underpants to mid-thigh, turning around and doing a 360. Once you do that, you can put your clothes back to their normal position for urinating. I'm going to give you the cup, and then you're going to provide me the specimen. So that is the direct observation procedure. There is a form available, 1-page instructions from the DOT that I encourage collectors to have available. They can show that to the donor if they have any questions. We'll put a link up on how to get that form. And it's a great tool because sometimes people say, well, why do I have to do this? And different things like that. So, Tom, you understand the process? And good. So, in this particular event today, we did a direct observation because the temperature was out of range. There are other situations when we would also do a direct observation. So, similar to the temperature out of range, if we got back a specimen that appeared to be adulterated or appeared to be substituted, there's something in there, it's the wrong color, it's blue, those are situations where we would also do a direct observation. Another time we would do a direct observation is if you come into my collection site and I find that you've got some type of materials or products that are designed to cheat the test. Something falls out of your pocket, something falls down your pant legs, different things like that. So those are times when we move forward to the direct observation collection. Now, one other thing about going into the restroom and doing the observation, if I find something strapped onto your body that is enabling you to cheat on the test, we are ending that collection immediately. And that is going to be a refusal to test. And I'm going to finish filling out my form. I'm going to print your name on copy 2 so that the MRO will know who you are. I'm going to sign my name, print my name, put in the remarks section what happened. I might have to fill out some additional remarks on a separate piece of paper, and I'm going to send all that to the MRO and to the employer, and that's going to be a refusal to test. So if the person is using something like what we've seen on the internet, if you want to Google and see it, it's called the Whizzinator, okay? Or, not to be discriminating, there's a female version called the butt wedge. So those things are out there on the internet. I don't know if you've seen them, Tom, but they are out there. Now, there's other times when the direct observation is required. For DOT testing, every follow-up test and every return to duty test is required to be directly observed. Also, in some cases, the MRO may be requiring the employer to send an individual back for a retest under direct observation. This may occur if we have a creatinine level that is extremely low and very suspicious. Based on certain values, the MRO will require a retest under direct observation. The MRO may also require a retest on a direct observation based on a previous test result of invalid with no medical explanation. And finally, in the DOT drug testing process, we're always sending in 2 vials, the A bottle and the B bottle, to the laboratory. And the B bottle always, when there's a positive, goes into the freezer and stored in case the donor is challenging the drug test result and is requesting a retest of their original specimen, a retest of the B bottle. And the laboratory goes to get the B bottle, and for some reason, they can't find it or it's not there. That's typically the only situation when a donor has a positive and they're challenging that result where they can go back and give a new specimen, but that new specimen is collected under what we call direct observation. So that's kind of direct observation. I don't know if you have any questions about it, Tom?
What happens if the person, say you catch them bringing something in, and you ask them what it is and they deny that? That's a direct observation at that point. What if they actually admit at that point? Is that going to be a direct observed as well?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because under the DOT regulations, if the donor admits to cheating to the collector, the event ends. The job of the collector is now to end the event. They still fill out their paperwork. This is an error that we see often. People end the event and don't finish their paperwork. You still have to finish the paperwork. You still have to go over to top copy 2 and record the donor's name. You're not sending anything to the lab because the event is ended. So you take copy 1 and you shred it. Okay, you don't need it any longer. But copy 2 is still faxed to the MRO. The collector copy 3, the collector maintains. And because there was, something eventful happened, I'd recommend the collector to keep that copy for indefinitely.
Right.
Case is a court case. Copy 4, the employer copy, still goes to the employer, very important. And always call the employer when something out of the ordinary, something eventful happens. And finally, copy 5 still goes to the donor. And anytime you give the donor their copy, the instructions were on the back that we went over earlier. And also, if you're on any medications, jot them down in case something comes up.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. So for what about for direct observations? If it ends up being a non-regulated test, is that something that does happen, doesn't happen, should or shouldn't?
Yeah. So that's really up to company policy, because in a non-regulated environment, the direct observation, I have a tendency to stay away from it with non-DOT, because with DOT, you're backed up by federal law and it's required by federal law. And it is uncomfortable, of course, going into the restroom with someone, asking them to basically show them their body parts, uncomfortable. Right. With non-DOT, it's really up to the company policy. My recommendation is that the company policy be that they do a recollect, but not under direct observation.
Okay. One last thing that did come to mind in that. What happens if the collector was supposed to have done a direct observation and ends up not doing the direct observation? I mean, that happens every once in a while.
That does happen. And for DOT testing, that's an issue. So what the DOT says, the answer is to that is, once the collector or any other service agent, the MRO or the TPA, once they realize it was supposed to be direct observed and it wasn't, now they're to call the donor and get them back in for the direct observation collection.
Okay. Yeah, I think that covers a lot of the things out there. I know there's a lot of questions that seem to come up in certain areas of when to do a direct, when not to do it, and how to handle that in certain situations.
Yeah, so
especially in completing the paperwork.
Absolutely. And paperwork's the most important thing, because the issues that we find with collections are on the paperwork. So we hope we've answered your questions and you understand a little bit more about the direct observation. We have a whole series of videos on the DOT urine specimen collection process. You can find those on our YouTube channel, National Drug Screening YouTube channel. Subscribe to that channel so you get those other videos as we post them. And always remember that we have a great blog with great information at www.nationaldrugscreening.com.